You're listening to the Coach's Journey Podcast, exposing the struggles and celebrating the successes in the life of coaches who are action takers and creating authentic impact in today's world. Whether you're just starting out, expanding your reach, or exploding your impact, you're in the right place right now. Stay tuned and be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Now, here are your hosts of the Coach's Journey Podcast.
And so, Faisal, as people are then posting things on social media and trying to build that presence, trying to build an expertise and a reputation as a coach, how do you think through, or how would you recommend our listeners to think through what to put, how much, should they do like whole sessions, like master classes, teaching stuff for free? Should it be paid? Like, how do we think through what to give and how to give it?
Yeah, and this is where getting focused and strategic matters a lot, because when I started out, like the mistake that I made, I was constantly thinking, okay, I need to post this, I need to put this, I need to put this out there. And the hope, like I said, was that somebody will reach out to me and book this client. And then we literally had a couple of clients in CMC. That was exactly their strategy. And I purposely asked them, like, so tell me a little bit about your strategy. What are you hoping will happen as you post these things on Instagram? And he's like, I haven't really quite thought about it, but I know what the thought process is. Like, but if I really think about it, my hope is that if I do a bunch of this stuff, somebody will click on my strategy session link and book that. And that might happen maybe once or twice. So as a reference, in the past 6 years, I think that's happened 4 times.
Okay.
for me, where somebody has gone to my link, and most of it has been more of an outreach. And this is the difference I want to make, is that the purpose of your post initially, as like Dr. Sherian talked, is for your credibility, for your trust that you're actually doing something. That's one purpose. But the other purpose is that it actually has a marketing purpose, in the sense that you're putting out posts and trainings intentionally to direct people to, let's say if you're only doing one-on-one coaching, to a sales conversation, to a discovery conversation. So I used to wait for people to like and comment on my posts for me to reach out to people. But now my thinking has completely reversed. I actually reach out to people so people can engage with my posts.
Interesting. I haven't heard you say that before.
Yeah, so it's the complete opposite. Like, it sounds simple, but it took me about 5 years to think of it this way.
Yay! Now you're shortcutting the journey for all of us. Thank you.
I know. I didn't even think of it, but so thinking of Facebook. So what happens when you message somebody? Think of somebody messaging you on Facebook or anywhere. What are you going to do? You're going to go into their profile. What are you going to do? You're going to see their posts. So when I'm messaging people, regardless of what the context of the message is, the first instinct would be go to my profile. They're going to see what I'm doing. They might not watch all the videos or posts, but at least now they're engaging with my profile, which is actually, in a sense, hacking the algorithms, because Facebook won't just show it. So on average, Facebook will show a very tiny percentage of your posts, even to the people who follow you. So that's one thing. And so what I'm sharing here is that you don't have to post a lot. Let's say if you post 2 posts, if we're taking Facebook as a reference, 2 posts a day on Facebook, and you do that 5 or 6 days a week. These posts are there to establish credibility and trust and content. It shows that you have authority. It shows that you're doing stuff in that space. But most of the work is in the background, is that you're actually reaching out to people, regardless of whether they've engaged with you or not. And I'm assuming that you know who these people are that you want to reach out to. So you have an idea of your niche and avatar. So for example, for me, real estate investors. So when I'm doing an outreach, I'm not randomly reaching out to people. I'm actually going into people's profiles, seeing what they're doing, what they're up to. And then I will reach out to them and I'll build a relationship. So I'll reach out to them. Maybe I'll share one of my posts is like, hey, I did this training and I saw that you were interested in this thing. So it's very custom, and context matters a lot here. Even Gary Vee will talk about it. He's like, context is everything. Yeah. If you're just randomly sending people a bunch of like copy paste messages, I've done that too. It doesn't give you the thing. But if you go into somebody's profile and you see that let's say they care about cats, I want to reference that to some degree if that's what it is. Or they care about what's happening in the economy right now, and they have concerns around that. And I'll share a message. And ideally, I have a post or a video that says something like, hey, I saw that you're thinking about this thing. I did a video on this. Let me know what you think. Just that could be a message. I'm
Yeah.
not asking them to join me on a strategy session because they don't even know me. Why would they want to join me? And I'm just building a relationship at that point. And then as that conversation leads, that slowly leads towards strategy session. There's a framework around that, but the key thing is that you're actually doing an outreach. And this is sales. This is if that's not there,
You
nothing
said the dirty word.
It's a beautiful word. I used to think of it as a dirty word too.
I know. It's hard. And if you're listening to this, you still might feel that little like icky feeling in the pit of your stomach when you think of sales. Or maybe you've turned from that caterpillar into the butterfly and now you're like, I love sales. But it's a frame of mind and it is an absolute necessity to being an entrepreneur, to having your own business. But it's really not a dirty word. I'm just teasing.
So let me give a good analogy. It's like if not having a negative relationship or not liking sales and money and business is equivalent to not liking water and you want to be a swimmer.
Right.
You're gonna have a very, very hard time with that because money and sales is the center point of business. That's the lifeblood. It doesn't work without it. No, and you can structure it in a way it can be very service oriented. It can be based on your values. You can do a lot in there. But if you have a negative relationship with money and sales, you're already putting a bunch of blocks in there that you don't need.
Yeah. And it was interesting when we did our visioning session 2 days ago. One of the gals that was present is one of our Coaching Mastery community members, pro members. And I heard her talk about this before, but she said it very, very eloquently and very plainly to where she for like 20 years prior to shifting into coaching, she was an executive director, and I'm probably going to butcher this a little bit, but of some different nonprofit organizations. And in the role that she did, she was required to coordinate and to do a ton of fundraising for the nonprofits. And so over the course of those 20 years, I wouldn't be shocked if she raised probably over 20 or $30 million. And that's a lot of conversation about money and asking. And yet, once she shifted over to coaching, she found that her boldness in asking for money didn't translate so easily into asking for the sale for her coaching. So just want to let you know that you may be awesome at sales in one context, but find yourself struggling a little bit at sales with your own coaching. And I would say that that's not to be super surprised. There's nothing wrong with you. There's just some practice and some shifting in your mindset and kind of how you're thinking about things. So the sales is hard for a lot of people, but it's doable. It's just something you have to retrain yourself in.
Yeah, and then there's a huge shift between you're offering, coaching is very personal. You're offering literally something that you've worked on, probably a big part of your life, and offering that to somebody and somebody else's product are two very big different things. And it requires a lot of trust and confidence and feedback in your own process to know that it actually works and you're not going to get it, because we're afraid of getting negative feedback around that. So, and we'll probably not have the time to go into what happens within the conversation when we give too much away within let's say a sales conversation or a coaching conversation. Maybe we can continue that next one. But I do want to wrap up. So what I'm trying to communicate here is that a lot of your time, like if you're starting a business, if you haven't made more than a few $1,000s or a few $100s in coaching, most of your time shouldn't go towards just creating content. Most of your time needs to go towards outreach, because unless you have clients coming in, you don't have the resources and time to focus on that. Right now, I have somebody hired, so there's marketing content constantly going out, but I'm not doing that personally. For a while I was doing that, I was getting overwhelmed. And there's a lot you can do in marketing yourself, but we're saying the bare minimum. So if you can do 10 posts a week, which is not a lot, you can dedicate like 2-3 hours a week, do that. Then the rest of your time is prospecting as you're reaching out to people. And I want to kind of bridge that, is that one of the mistakes that I made, and I was sharing that with Sherry before, is that I never created like a central place, for example, like a Facebook group or whatever kind of group where people can come in that you can constantly add value. And I did build an email list that helps in a newsletter. So that helped a little bit. But having a central place where you're constantly building a relationship, it makes the conversations easier. It's one thing to kind of reach out to somebody through your profile who's a friend and you've never talked to them on Facebook. But it's actually very different if you have a Facebook group and they've been a member and you've added consistent value for weeks in and weeks out, and just reaching out to them and see like, if I can support you further. It's much, the gap between going from, hey, I saw your profile doing something, to booking a call with them is shortened much more if you have a central place where you can add value. So if you're going to put in your effort anywhere, it would be inviting people to a central place where you're consistently adding content and value. And if you want an example around that, just go to Coaching Mastery Community Facebook group. And if you haven't joined it, definitely join us. But if you're listening to this live, you're already part of the group, you will see that we're adding a lot of content in there. We're doing Facebook Lives, we're doing master classes, we're doing all sorts of stuff to add value. And we're doing outreach behind too, to connect with you. And what we're promoting is what we're doing here. And so you don't need a lot of content to give away for you to build leads for your business. You just need to reach out to people for prospecting, which means that you're proactively actually reaching out to people and getting them to book either a paid session or a free session. But that part is the hardest part in sales in general, but especially for coaches, because they're putting themselves kind of on the line, because their whole product is pretty much themselves.
Yeah.
Not a host or series of products like any other company. It's hard. And that's the part that most coaches won't do. And the ones who do, and I'll give you an example. Yesterday, we had one of our members. I did a support session with him, and he just didn't know where to start. He's like, I'm so new and I don't know what to do. Like, should I do more content? I'm like, well, how much coaching have you done? He's like, maybe 2-3 sessions. And I'm like, where's the challenge? His challenge was in the confidence area. I'm like, well, you need to start working with people, paid or unpaid, because unless you're working with people, and he's going to be part of our chain too, so he's going to get feedback for his process in our coaching chain, but you need to work with at least 2 or 3 people every quarter to get feedback from actual clients. And so his challenge became like, just reach out to 7 or 8 people that you know in your environment. And when he did that, he got 1 paid client and 3 unpaid clients.
That's
awesome. But he's actually moving forward. Now he's asking me like, oh, what do I do? What do I do on the sales session? What do I do on this one? So now there's movement created. There's excitement because he actually did something. Now, most coaches will just wait. I know that because I've done it. So it's not a judgment thing. I did it for 2 years. Yeah. And I see most coaches I talk to, they just wait after they put content. They're not proactive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's easy to fall into the trap of, and again, I've done this too, just like you were saying, like, oh my gosh, I just posted the most amazing, thoughtful, wise post ever. It's so life-changing. Surely somebody's going to recognize my brilliance and reach out to me. And no, they don't,
And then shattered.
I know. And some of you, as you're listening to Faisal say, maybe just post 2 times a day. You might be thinking, I don't even know how to fit those 2 times in a day. Let me ask you, do you go to the bathroom at least twice a day?
That's like the most productive time I have.
Seriously, because you could write a post while you're doing your business, and there you go. There's 1 of them or 2 of them or 3 of them. Another thing that I do, just as an example, I go to the gym every morning, and sometimes I will go on the stationary bike and I will read. Well, when I read, because I'm always reading, things like personal self-development or business or whatever. And so no matter what I'm reading, I'm always like having insights and tying things with like, oh, that's a really interesting idea if I applied it here. So sometimes what I do is when I'm reading, I'll have that like spark of genius, and then I will put the book down and then I will do a Facebook post on it or something like that, to where I'll just dump some information. So there's lots of ways that you can fit it into your day without it feeling overwhelming and like just one extra big thing to do. So don't let that get in the way. And if you feel stuck, anytime you feel stuck, as a coach, we coach our coachees on this all the time. Anytime you feel stuck, talk about it with somebody else, because that often will help you feel unstuck. This is totally doable. Just keep on persisting, iterating what you're doing, and just making sure that you are spending time on the most important things. And doing a bunch of social media without directly reaching out and having conversations with people, isn't necessarily focusing all of your time in the most productive way. So I think that's a really great point, Faisal.
Yeah, thank you for elaborating on that too. The most important thing is that when you start to get a few clients, even if they're paying you much lower than what you had hoped, it gets you in the game. And as soon as you're in the game, now you're seeing your clients you're in the challenge of it. Now maybe you're struggling in your coaching. You're like, okay, how do I deal with that? Now you have data to work through. You can go talk to another coach, or you can be part of our mastermind where like, okay, I tried this, it wasn't working, wasn't landing, or this client fired me. We had one of our clients share, and that happens. Or okay, I went through this session, but the client didn't renew. Now we have data to work with. But if you're not in the game, most of it is theoretical. And you can get all the programs in the world. You can be part of every mastermind. You can put thousands of dollars on the line. It's not going to change unless you actually put yourself in the game. So if you haven't done sessions, strategy sessions, discovery calls, coaching sessions, get in the game. And I'll reference Rich Lidman from Prosperous Coach, and that phrase changed my business. Coach, coach, and coach if you want to have business.
You're listening to the Coach's Journey podcast.